Mr. Speaker, enabling Kenyans to have decent and affordable homes has been one of the pillars of the Big Four agenda, and the affordable housing program has been, over the last 4 years, my keen intention. We have had problems in passing legislation before this House, but I can happily say that despite this, we have seen an increase in private investment also in the housing sector, amounting to some 2.12 trillion Kenya shillings. And these investments have yielded over 186,000 housing units, a remarkable 43% increase of housing units compared to the year 2013-2017. The general prices of houses have decreased slightly, and we must continue to see what it is that we can do together to increase the amount available in terms of affordable housing. And this will therefore result in many more Kenyans being able to enjoy the dignity and pride that comes with owning a home. To institutionalize this affordable housing program into prosperity, and in partnership with some of our development partners, we have also established the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company. This financing powerhouse provides long-term, large-scale funding to banks and SACCOs, which in turn avails these funds to home buyers at flexible and affordable interest rates of below 10%. Therefore, the dream of owning a home today is a greater possibility to many more of our fellow citizens than it was 4 years ago. But here, honorable members, there is much more that we can do. Mr. Speaker, food security is another key pillar of the Big Four agenda, and to ensure significant improvement in farm productivity and by enhancing the quality of farm inputs and reducing reliance on rain-fed agriculture. In the last year, we have seen the price of maize meal retailing between Kenya shillings 95 and Kenya shillings 105. However, despite a bumper crop in some parts of our country, due to the poor performance of the short rains in 2020 and the long rains this year, parts of our country have suffered severe drought situations, and as a result, 2.1 million of our fellow citizens are food insecure. The recurrence of drought is a phenomenon that successive administrations have grappled with little success. And even though we have made progress in the mitigation of drought, the progress has not been fast enough. So as part of our state response, we launched an elaborate framework for ending drought emergencies in Kenya. The framework focused on investing in interventions that will build the resilience of all vulnerable households to drought. This included over Kenya shillings 25 billion investments in the foundations of development of such as sustainable peace building, conflict management, water harvesting, and supply, road construction and improvement, education and training, health and nutrition services. In addition, investment in community-based resilience and drought preparedness projects has also been accelerated through the support of the national as well as county governments, as well as our development partners. The aim of this investment is to improve the livelihoods of vulnerable households by diversifying their livelihoods. As we respond to the current drought, we have commenced with a livestock offtake program and initiated support to the affected citizens in a dignified manner through the cash transfer system, which is a cash transfer system of stipends to affected families that replaces the dignity of having to queue for the distribution of food portions. Mr. Speaker, the government will continue to support all vulnerable households and will endeavor to ensure that, notwithstanding the severity of the winds of drought, that no Kenyan will die of hunger. If dignity is freedom from want, accompanied by freedom from fear, then I can confirm to this House that we have done a lot to liberate our people from want, but I also want to underscore that maybe more has to be done to liberate our people from fear, that more has been done to liberate our people from fear, yet very little has been spoken about it. Today, and with your indulgence, speakers, I will go on record in this House as having been the Commander-in-Chief that steered the implementation of the most consequential and ambitious transformation of our security sector. And we did this because my administration appreciated that to have the freedom from fear, our security sector has to be in good form. To give an example, the police-to-population ratio today is at its highest level ever, as prescribed by the UN standard. Our police complement has received an additional 47,000 new recruits who have joined the service from the year 2013 to date. Similarly, over the last 8 years, we have undertaken the most consequential and expansive modernization of our military. And in fact, the reform undertakings in the military are actually unparalleled in our nation's history. We have invested substantially in building new barracks. We have invested in military manufacturing capabilities that have not only resulted in the spurring of previously dormant sectors, but the creation for jobs for young people, both directly and through ancillary services. For the first time in Kenya's history, we are producing our own light weapons and military uniform and other equipment and supplies that were previously imported. We have, as a result, employed over 600 young people in these industries in high-paying, high-skilled jobs and saved our country a lot in foreign exchange. We have achieved knowledge and technology transfer for the growth and anticipated future development. And this is because I am determined to tool and to retool our security forces to the highest standards attainable, and this is the only way we will guarantee freedom from fear for our people and indeed secure our territorial integrity. Mr. Speaker, sir, on territorial integrity, I want to go on record in this House that our forefathers bequeathed us our homeland and nation. The government of Kenya will do everything possible to preserve the territory of this great republic and ensure that generation after generation of Kenyans dwell in it, as it is, in fact, intact and unencumbered. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, as I have said before, not an inch more and not an inch less. Honorable speakers, this aside, I want to say that the health of our security system is not only as good, Honorable speakers, this aside, I want to say that the health of a security system is only as good as the health of its officers. And this is why I have invested in the social welfare of personnel charged with the security of our nation. We have reviewed their remuneration, allowances, benefits, housing and insurance, and we have also increased the capacity of their health facilities, used by our security organs. In particular, we have recently established a new Level 4 hospital in Kahawa Garrison, and soon I will be in Isiolo opening another Level 4 hospital. I recently commissioned a trauma and counseling center in Manda in Lamu County, and we shall also be breaking ground on an additional 3 Level 4 hospitals, one in Eldoret for the Defense Forces, one in Ruiru for the Prison Services, and one in Mbagathi for the National Police Service. The upgrade of the Forces Memorial Hospital to a Level 5 facility is set to begin early next year. And in addition, there is the ongoing construction of the very first Level 6 hospital for the Defense Forces off Waiyaki Way in Nairobi. Our focus on military and police housing will further augment the social support structures that we have prioritized for our disciplined forces. In addition to ongoing initiatives to improve on police housing, the government will later this month, that is me, I'm not the government, but I, will later this month, later in the month of December, break ground for the building of 3,500 houses for our military officers. Mr. Speaker, since I came into office in 2013, we have embarked on a path that has placed human development at our foremost priority. A nation is more than boundaries, borders and territory. A nation is her people. To judge a nation, one must examine the lives of ordinary citizens and the extent to which they can access basic requirements owed to them, and the quality of this access is what gives them dignity. And the heart of that development of our nation is the development of a dignified citizen. And I believe that education is the gateway to this development, a gateway that tears down inequality. And that is why today I am pleased to report on the gains that we have made in the last 8 years in the sector of education. By the year 2030, our population is expected to be about 63 million. And out of this, about 38% of Kenya's population will be categorized as school-going. This means that 2 out of every 5 Kenyans will be in school. And in order to meet the ever-growing demand of the global landscape, we must prepare the next generation now, today and not tomorrow. And that is why we have been committing each year to channeling a substantial amount of our national budgetary resources to our education sector. In the past financial year, we have ensured that about a quarter of our national budget was allocated to education. And in a call to action endorsed by several heads of state and government at this year's Global Education Summit, that Kenya was privileged to lead alongside the United Kingdom, my administration pledged to allocate 26% of our national expenditure to education in the coming financial year. And this, I believe, is an unachievable target, given that our current apportionment stands slightly less than a quarter. These dedicated funds have allowed us to achieve what was previously thought to be impossible goals. In 2009, the first year of free secondary education witnessed a 66.9% transition from primary to secondary school. But by 2018, we had increased that transition rate to 85.5%, and today we can proudly report that we have secured a true 100% transition rate for 3 successive years in our primary to secondary system. Equally important is to note that we have now achieved the global feat of a 1-to-1 book ratio in all our public primary and secondary schools. This has improved the quality of education and reduced the cost of education on parents. To further ensure that no Kenyan child is left behind, and therefore to effectively enhance the delivery of the compulsory basic education from primary through to secondary school, I am pleased to report to the House that since 2013, we have recruited an additional 107,000 teachers, approximately comprising of 54,775 primary school teachers and 52,453 secondary school teachers. Our enhancement of manpower in these institutions of basic education by over 25% has significantly mitigated the shortage of teachers in the country and in turn bridged the teacher-to-student ratio. Honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, in order to continue with these achievements, we need to secure the entire education ecosystem. We need to ensure that there is adequate infrastructure, comprehensive policy choices, skilled educators, and a healthy learning environment. In support of this, my administration has grown the number of schools at the pre-primary and primary school levels from 3,764 in 2007 to 10,118 in 2021, and we are building an average of over 1,265 schools each year. Additionally, since 2013, the electrification of schools has been a priority, and currently over 90% of schools are connected to the grid. This has led to improved learning outcomes and enhanced utilization of technology, including modern mass media tools in the classroom. Another critical plank is education reforms, is securing the large tenure of our educational institutions. The founding technocrats of our nation did not envision a situation where secure tenure for schools would be an issue in the future. And that is why they never secured the title deed for our schools. But today we know different. Our school titling program, therefore, has become increasingly important. As of 2015, only 4,900 schools had been titled since independence. Today, over 12,000 schools out of a total of 32,354 have been issued with title deeds because of a multi-agency effort. In guaranteeing public schools their titles, my administration has upheld the fundamental right of education and initiated a process to ensure that there is no school sitting on land that it does not own. Yeah. Jaribu kukatakata jameni, hata mimi nimechoka. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, let me conclude my address by speaking about the fourth frame that has guided my administration, and I call it political stabilization, which is the doctrine that guided me to a path of a handshake with the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Honorable members, undoubtedly, as I have tried to explain, my administration has secured an impressive economic acceleration, including the doubling of our GDP from 4.74 trillion to 11 trillion shillings. We have also made big push investments that have spurred development, revived debt capital, and boosted entrepreneurship. We have also restored dignity to our people through water and sanitation, healthcare, education, roads, and security reforms. However, all of this would amount to very little without political stabilization. If every 5 years, toxic political climate and election time tensions would reverse the gains painfully secured, our impressive development record of accomplishment would be an immense tower, sadly built on sand but not rock. For the record, political stabilization is not an end in itself. It's a continuous process that every administration, even those that come after me, must apply their minds to and secure. And let me explain. Next month, we will be celebrating 30 years of political pluralism gained following the reintroduction of multi-party politics through the repeal of Section 2A of the former Constitution on the 10th of December, 1991. From the Mulolongo voting system of the KANU era to our vibrant democracy today, we must celebrate the journey that we have taken and the expanded fields of freedom that we enjoy. While undoubtedly multi-party politics has been a much better democratic platform than the single-party state, we must not ignore the very real negative aspects of our politics and electioneering. The evidence of this is plainly observable in the elections of 1992, 97, 2007, 2013, and 2017, and only in 2002, when, well, yours truly surrendered easily, is the only one that did not have a problem. In 1992, the election cost us Kenya shillings 248 billion in lost economic growth. Lives were lost and populations displaced. And during this election, Kenya's foreign direct investment at the time fell by 2/3, from Kenya shillings 1.8 billion to Kenya shillings 600 million. In 2007, the election eroded the equivalent of Kenya shillings 250 billion in lost economic growth in a matter of days. Lives were lost and populations displaced, just as had been the case to a far lesser extent in 1997. In 2017, we lost close to Kenya shillings 1 billion every working hour for the 123 days we held the election. And in fact, in 2017 election, the economy lost approximately 1 trillion in response to that particular electioneering period. And the question I pose, therefore, to the leadership of this country present here today is this: is this right? Is this trajectory the logical path that our country should take? Thank you. And as I have said before, our country has been in a constitutional moment since 2017. The only question is, what should we do with this constitutional moment? If we do not embrace it, how will it return to punish our nation? And if we embrace it, who are the winners and losers of that moment? That, honorable members, is the question before us today. The parliamentary record, as well as history, reflects that during this reporting period, my administration did attempt to resolve the constitutional dilemma facing our country. We went to the people, and 5 million Kenyans agreed to initiate the process of putting the First Amendment to the 2010 Constitution to a vote. The First Amendment, honorable members, was thereafter taken to county assemblies, where it received nearly unanimous endorsement. In this august parliament, the people's elected representative gave the first mandate a clear nod of approval by a margin in excess of 2/3. If indeed, and I speak to those that need to listen to this, if indeed Article 1 of the 2010 Constitution states that all sovereign power rests in the people of Kenya and can be exercised either directly or through their representatives, the people made their voices heard with regard to the First Amendment. They exercised this power directly through the IEBC petition for constitutional change. They made this petition indirectly through the county assemblies and parliament. and the record of Parliament attests to the fact that the people of Kenya wanted a constitutional change. Individuals sat down in a back room and they decided otherwise. That said, and this being a house of records, I must record what we lost from the First Amendment, and I am doing this for parliamentary record and for posterity. The first loss was equity in resource allocation. In missing the First Amendment to the 2010 Constitution, Kenya missed the possibility to increase the minimum county allocation from the current 15% to 35%. My administration, as I mentioned earlier, has increased this allocation to 30%, but this only through administrative fiat. But to anchor this goodwill in the Constitution so that devolution is embedded, we wanted a constitutional amendment that was clear and certain. This, honorable members, did not happen. Had this amendment been adopted, counties would have by law received Kenya shillings 562 billion instead of the 316 billion allocated to them in the 2020-21 budget, an increase of over 75% of their current allocation. The second loss, honorable members, from the First Amendment was proportional representation. Proportionality is about the equitable distribution of resources amongst all groups. And on this particular point, I just want to focus on one: gender balance among. The First Amendment to our Constitution would have ensured that 50% of all senators were women. And the logic here was to ensure that if we percolate the proposed 35% of our national revenues to counties, women should be at the center of decision-making on how this revenue is utilized. But, honorable members, this did not happen. The third loss was about expanding our national executive to accommodate a broader face of Kenya and to expand representation. This would have constitutionalized the end of the winner-takes-all outcomes of elections that creates so much toxicity and tension. Again, honorable members, this did not happen. Honorable members, we cannot behave like the proverbial ostrich and bury our heads in the sand. A constitutional moment does not resolve itself simply by being ignored. The need for political stabilization is, I believe, the most urgent task facing Kenyans today. And it is the foundation. Upon which our greater justice, fairness, health, wealth, and security will be built on. And for this reason, I want to believe, honorable members, that that which did not happen will happen. Honorable speakers, ladies and gentlemen, I have given an account of my tenure in office for the last 8 years with a focus on the last year. I want to thank all members of Parliament in both houses for their individual and collective contribution to the realization of our legislative agenda. Over this last year, the National Assembly considered and passed 30 bills, while the Senate passed 19 bills, out of which 3 bills have received presidential assent, while 16 others are before the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I also note with appreciation that the National Assembly considered and approved 4 sessional papers 36 statutory instruments, 15 treaties over the past 1 year, including the Economic Partnership Agreement between the Republic of Kenya and the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland. As you are aware, there are a number of critical legislative proposals emanating from the executive which are still pending in Parliament. And to that end, I urge Parliament to expedite and conclude on the legislative process so that we can have those urgently needed pieces of legislation in place. My administration has also submitted the Huduma Bill, which is so far conclusively institutionalized the reforms of the national identity ecosystem through the establishment of the National Integrated Identity Management System. The other seminal legislative proposals include the Political Parties Amendment Bill, the Political Party Membership Regulation, the Government Contracts Bill, the Kenya National Blood Transfusion Bill, the Irrigation Amendment Bill 2021, the Irrigation Amendment Bill, the Kenya National Library Services Bill, the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Amendment Bill 2021, and once enacted into law, the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Amendment will enhance the integrity of our financial system by closing the last loopholes in our war against money laundering and other such maneno. This amendment is not in any way expected to erode a key tenet of the legal practice of advocate-client privilege. I, however, note that on Friday this week, Parliament shall proceed to its traditional long recess. To that end, through you, Honourable Speakers, I urge Parliament to consider adjusting its calendar to ensure that all the critical legislation and legal instruments, including those related to elections, are concluded in a timely manner. As we look for the future, Honourable Members, I see great promise. However, just as I said earlier, we must be bold enough to shape it. In just about 8 years, our National Development Blueprint, Kenya Vision 2030, will have run its course, and with it will come the dawn of the 4th decade of the 21st century. By 2030, Kenya will be home to about 63 million of us. The foundation that successive administrations have built will bear true dividends if we boldly reimagine our futures. But if we go it alone, we might not secure the best opportunities for our children. In my eyes, our best chance as individual African nations is to embrace a continent where there is free movement of persons, goods, services, and capital, as is characterized under the Africa Free Trade Arrangement. This is because, as I have said before, we are not competitors, but rather comrades with a shared dream which will be achieved much faster through collaboration. The Pan-African dream of our founding fathers that inspired the establishment of the Organization of African Unity that transitioned ultimately to the African Union must transcend to being beyond an inspiration. For Kenya to lead towards this course, on assuming the presidency for my second term, I issued a directive that any African wishing to visit Kenya would be eligible to receive a visa at the point of entry. I did this in the full realization that to secure the prosperity of Kenyans, East Africans, and Africans, we must begin in earnest to break down the walls that divide and separate us. So, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Speakers, I challenge Parliament to put in place a legal framework to lead to closer union with our brethren in East Africa and across the continent, and to advocate for shared prosperity, greater fraternity, and greater security in Africa. Mr. Speaker, this intent must, however, be preceded by a solidification of the various regional blocs, and in particular, our own East African community. I say this because the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. When each part appreciates its role and the contribution of other parts, then the body is able to function effectively. The African Union will only be strong and vibrant when our regional blocs are of similar character. We must simultaneously re-energize our common bond as brothers and sisters in East Africa, even as we craft a path to the single African Union. This, Mr. Speaker, is the future that I see, and Mr. Speakers lead this Parliament in tearing down these barriers. So, honourable speakers, honourable members, it is now my high privilege and extreme pleasure to submit to Parliament the following 3 reports as required by the Katiba. A. Report on measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of our national values 2020. Report on progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic 2020. And C. Report on the state of security of Kenya 2020. I have the pleasure of submitting alongside the constitutionally required reports, the report on the Kenya Business Climate Reforms Milestone Report 2020-21. I submit the report in recognition that micro, small and medium enterprises remain the lifeblood of our economy, and as I stated earlier, my administration has instituted various reforms over the last years that tore down the barriers that constrain the growth of micro, small and medium enterprises, enabling these enterprises to seize more opportunities and build back better. In that regard, I commit the reports of the record to the record of Parliament so as to maintain the momentum of the powerful engine that has kept our economy roaring. I thank you all, and may God bless you, and may God bless, preserve, and protect the Republic of Kenya and her people. And now, therefore, I hand over the reports to the Speaker of the Senate and the Speaker of the National Assembly in that order. Asanteni sana.
Okay, order, senators. Order, members. Honorable senators, having concluded the only business on today's order paper, the Senate now stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 1st December 2021, at 9:30 a.m. in the Senate chamber. I thank you.
Honourable members of the National Assembly, the National Assembly now stands adjourned until Wednesday, 1st of December 2021 at 9:30 a.m. All honourable members and invited guests will join His Excellency the President for our reception at the Parliament courtyard, just in front. In the meantime, honourable members, please remain standing in your places as His Excellency the President and the Speaker's procession leave the chamber. I thank you.
You have been watching a special sitting